So learning how to read a food label is by far one of the single best skills that you can build if you're working on losing weight and improving your health. And in this video, we're going to learn how to do that. Let's get into it. So in the age that we live in, unfortunately, it's very, very difficult sometimes to decide whether something is healthy or unhealthy. Marketers are at the point where they are using terms to their absolute advantage and basically trying to convince you that their products are healthy when they're not, right? Terms like organic, gluten-free, sugar-free, all natural, all these things that could potentially mean that something could be healthy, but in a lot of situations, they're being misused when that product is not healthy. And so if you're just starting out, if you don't know how to read a food label, this is one of the most important skills you can build because it helps you avoid all these marketing tricks that these marketers are using to try to get you to eat their food. And so in this video, we're really going to dive into a simple step-by-step process that's going to help you understand how to actually read a food label. Now, for the purpose of this video, we are going to be looking at this generic protein shake brand to kind of walk through the process and then also see how a lot of marketers can actually be misleading you with how their product looks. So let's actually just break this down step by step and see what we've got. So this is a very generic protein shake. I've seen a lot of people drinking these with the idea that they are healthy. And by the label, it kind of does look healthy, right? We've got the claim on the top right, gluten-free. We've got frosty chocolate flavored, naturally and artificially flavored. 35 grams of protein, only 1 gram of sugar, 170 calories. We got low fat, supports lean muscle and strength, excellent source of calcium. So by first view, this looks pretty good, right? The only red flag really that would come up for me is artificially flavored, because that just means it's not very real. And if it's not very real, it's not going to mix with your body very well. But of course, we can't go on that alone, because the truth is that marketers will do whatever they can to make you think that their products are healthy when they're not. So if we were to break this down into a process and go through this step by step, the single and most important step here would be to go directly to the ingredients. Now, this is a mindset shift that I believe everyone should have when they're working on losing weight, is when you look at a food, you're not just looking at a food, you're looking at a culmination of ingredients contained in that food. So for example, for this protein shake, you're not just looking at a protein shake. You're looking at ingredients such as water, protein blend that includes milk protein concentrate, calcium caseinate. We got cocoa processed with alkali. We've got artificial flavors with caramel color. We've got tricalcium phosphate, soybean oil, sucralose, salt, sodium citrate, dipotassium phosphate, acesulfame potassium, and carrageenan. You're not just drinking a protein shake, you're drinking all of those ingredients mixed into one. And so when you look at the ingredients, the first thing that I would recommend is that if there are so many ingredients that you have no idea how to pronounce them, odds are it's not going to be very healthy for you. Right? For the most part, if you're looking at a long list of ingredients, it means that there's a lot of this garbage combined, and a lot of this stuff is going to mess up with the way the body is working. Now, when we look at the ingredients, what we're looking at is the first ingredient is the one that is most contained, so it's the largest volume in this package, in this food, or in this drink in this case, and the last ingredient would be the smallest, so it's listed from the highest volume to the lowest volume. So here, water would be the highest level of ingredient in here, and then carrageenan would be the most minimal. And then obviously it goes down. Now, what you're gonna find in a lot of situations is that companies will use two names of sugar. So they'll use something like syrup, and then they'll use something like sugar. And if those ingredients are right next to each other, what you're most likely looking at is that those two ingredients combined is a higher level than the ingredient before them. So if this right here, the ingredients were water, sugar, and then high fructose corn syrup, odds are there would be a combined higher amount of sugar than there is water in this, right? That's just a little marketer trick. But really what we're going to be doing here is breaking down these ingredients, and something I just truly like to live by as a mantra is if it's man-made, it's probably not good for you. Now, I'm not saying you can never ever have those things. I still have those things from time to time, but the majority of what you eat should be something that is completely natural, completely from the earth. So let's break this down, right? Because there's a lot of ingredients in here that aren't very well known. So first, water, self-explanatory. Next, you're going to get a protein blend of milk protein concentrate and calcium caseinate. Now, milk protein is very iffy. A lot of people suffer digestive issues from dairy, and there's actually going to be more inflammation in the body from dairy. So this is like a first red flag of something where I wouldn't want it consume this. I would go with something like an almond milk or a coconut milk, but there's nothing really terrible about that. I mean, it is a little inflammatory and there are some issues with dairy with people. But let's say, for example, that was an almond milk. We'd go to cocoa, processed with alkali. Okay, so it's kind of lost most of its nutritional content when it's processed with something like alkali. Then we've got artificial flavors. Now, for artificial flavors to come in this early in the ingredients list, meaning that there's more artificial flavors in there than anything that comes after it, that's a big red flag. Because when we look at artificial flavors, usually they're designed in a lab to cause our taste buds to become addicted to the taste and to want to seek out more of the taste. And not just necessarily grabbing another protein shake, but maybe going to your cupboard and grabbing some more sugar, some more cookies, some more sweets. And so that's a big red flag for me. That alone would make me want to put this whole protein shake down. Avoiding artificial ingredients as much as you can is a really, really smart idea when you're working on cutting down sugar cravings and losing weight. Next, we've got caramel color. Now, caramel color is created by heating up a couple different ingredients at a very high temperature. It has been linked to being carcinogenic compounds, so this is something I'd recommend avoiding as well. This is something that's usually in Coca-Cola. Tricalcium phosphate, so I don't know too much about this ingredient, so this is a really, really good strategy. Is that if there's ever an ingredient that you don't know a lot about, just Google it, right? The more that you do this, the more that you get out there. Yeah, the first few weeks or months, you're going to be Googling a lot, but the more you do it, the more you're going to learn about these ingredients, and you're going to learn about what to look for and what not to look for. So it looks like tricalcium phosphate is just a form of calcium, which shouldn't be a big deal. Next is soybean oil. Now, soybean oil is super, super inflammatory. We really want to avoid oils like soybean oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, because all of those are going to create more inflammation in the body and then could potentially spike blood sugar and also cause more hunger. Next is sucralose. Sucralose is an artificial sweetener. So this explains why there's only 1 gram of sugar and why it still probably tastes incredible. Is because they're using an artificial sweetener in there. Now, there's kind of mixed opinions on sucralose, but from my understanding, it actually hurts your gut bacteria, which in the big picture makes it much more difficult to lose weight. So it's not necessarily spiking your blood sugar like normal sugar is, but it is going to be impacting the body in a negative way. Next is salt, then sodium citrate, dipotassium phosphate, acesulfame potassium, carrageenan. Now, out of those, I would probably avoid most of them. I'm not really sure about some of them. I do know carrageenan is a thickening agent that is also linked to a lot of digestive issues. So it can cause gas, can cause bloating, stomach pain. So again, when we look at this, when we break down the ingredients, it's giving us a lot clearer of a picture than the front of the label is. And that's why this is the absolute first step. Now, for a lot of people, this can be overwhelming because you're getting into this and there's all these different ingredients that you have no idea what to do with. So what I would recommend if you're interested in checking it out is in the link of this video, we have access to our EMS Body Mastery program. So you'll sign up for our free course, and then after you'll find more about the actual program. And in that program, we give you a ingredient list of 13 different ingredients to avoid for weight loss. So it's a lot easier than really learning about every single ingredient and what they do. And it's just basically keeping that list with you and just fact checking, right? Is this ingredient on here? If it's not, it's good to go. If it is, I should avoid it for weight loss. And if I were to break this down into healthy versus unhealthy, it'd be a lot longer of a list. But for now, we're just focusing with the basics. So if you want to check that out, check the link in the description. But that is really going to be step 1 here, is checking the ingredient. Now, the second step is we want to go up to the serving size in the nutrition facts. Now, with this one, this is a pretty good example. The serving size is just going to be 1 can. So you drink 1 can of this, pretty simple. Now, if you're getting into like a box of snacks, or you're getting into condiments or something where there's multiple servings in the package, we really want to make sure, okay, what is that serving size here? Because if you're looking at some Cheez-Its, most people are probably eating more Cheez-Its in one sitting than the actual serving size is calling for. And so the next step after, once we start looking at the calories and the fat and the sugar and everything like that, we need to have that bigger picture of how many servings. Because let's say this, if this serving size was half a can, now we look at calories and it's 170, and we can double that and know that a full can is going to be 340 calories. So we got to get really clear on what that serving size is. So that's step number 2. Step number 3 is really where we're going to look at the macronutrients. So my focus is here. The macros are obviously the fat, the carbs, and the proteins. But then I'm also going to take a look at the sugars, because there's going to be a lot of sugars in some products that you probably weren't aware of. And we'll look at some examples here in a second. So really what I'm looking for here is I probably want to focus more on protein, especially when it comes to snacking. But what I'm limiting here is going to be the carbs and the sugars. I'll have higher carb foods if I know that the ingredients are super healthy, because the ingredients is my gold standard here. But really, if I'm working on snacking or working on weight loss, I want to prioritize protein. I really want to focus on protein, maybe even a little bit higher in fat. Once you start getting into that, you start having a little more calories, but we're not really looking for higher carbs, because usually when it comes to higher carbs, it means you're going to spike your insulin, which is going to cause you to have a crash and then want to seek out more food. Now, that's not the case in everything. There's definitely a lot of carbs that don't impact your body like that. But for the most part, when it comes to packaged food, that's something I'm working on. So we've looked at the ingredients, we've looked at the serving size, we've looked at the macros. And then step number 4 is looking at the calories. Now, I rarely do this. I have never counted calories in my life. I just don't believe that that's a smart way to do things, especially because our body processes calories very, very differently. But really here, if I'm just going to break down the label, it may be a good idea to look into this, because you could find that a snack that you thought is a very, very portion of the actual food size that you're having throughout the day could be a couple hundred calories, and now you're adding all these on. But again, I really don't look at that stuff. It's not something that my expertise is in, and it's not something I believe is necessary if you're working on losing weight. So that's number 4. And then number 5 is I'll browse the whole package. Now, I'm browsing the package with that mindset of everything I've just consumed. So understanding the ingredients, understanding the macros, potentially the serving size, calories. But really when I'm browsing the package, I'm kind of looking at it from a, let's break this down. Like, why are they doing this the way that they are? So for this one, gluten-free, right? Obviously it's gluten-free, but obviously this is also a marketing ploy to help you lean towards, hey, this is probably more healthy than it actually is. We look at the protein. They're obviously going to want to put a high protein count on there. Low sugar, again, remembering that most of the sugar is coming from that artificial sweetener, so it's not going to actually appear as an actual sugar on the label. And then we've got, supports lean muscle and strength, excellent source of calcium, which are just claims, right? I mean, they're like, yes, maybe, but then also at the same time, probably not super healthy for you. So that's the 5-step process. So we've got going right to the ingredients. We've got looking at the serving size. We've got looking at the macros, looking at the calories, and then finally browsing the whole package. Now, I want to give you guys some examples here to really help this cement and just kind of walk you through this process of how my mindset goes. So the first thing we've got here is some Kroger olive oil mayo. Now, this was in my fridge because someone actually brought it over. But let's take a look at this, right? If we were to look at the label alone, we would think, okay, it's olive oil, it's made with cage-free eggs, it's reduced fat, and it looks like it's pretty healthy. But again, step number 1 is going to be going to the ingredients. And so if we flip this over, we look at the ingredients, we find that olive oil is actually not the main form of oil in this mayo. The main form is going to come right after water, which is soybean oil. And as I said before, soybean oil is very, very inflammatory. So this is something we probably don't want to be consuming on a daily basis. After the soybean oil, then we get into the olive oil. Then we get into whole eggs and egg yolks. Modified potato starch, which is basically like a sugar. Distilled vinegar. Then we've got more sugar. We've got salt, lemon juice concentrate, natural flavor, calcium disodium, EDTA. So based off the ingredients alone, this is probably not the best choice for mayonnaise, right? You can get a actual olive oil or an avocado oil based mayonnaise that's going to be a little bit more nutritional for you, not as inflammatory, and it's probably going to be a better idea. But for the sake of this, let's also take a look at a little bit more of the label. So a serving size here is going to be 1 tablespoon. Now, let's just be honest, who's actually using a tablespoon of mayo when they use it? Probably using a little bit more. But in that tablespoon, we have 6 grams of fat. Now, like I said, this is going to be a less healthy fat because it's coming from soybean oil rather than olive oil. We've got only a gram of carbs, which isn't bad. We've got 0 grams of sugar. But then remember, there's sugar in the ingredients. So something else here to note is that if the amount is less than 0.5 grams, in a serving size, they can actually put 0 grams on the label. So my guess is, because they have sugar here and because their serving size is only 1 tablespoon, if you get into the 2 tablespoon range, you're probably going to see a gram of sugar per serving. Protein, 0 grams. Okay. So this isn't super substantial. Obviously, the main source here is more fat. We've got 60 calories in that 1 tablespoon. But again, based on this, I would not consume this because of the soybean oil. Example number 2 is going to be Cantina salsa. Now, this is a salsa I just tried, and if we look at this, we've got, it's non-GMO, but there's no organic sign. And so what most people tend to think, especially when they start eating healthy right away, is if it's not organic, it's not healthy. Now, yes and no. So the fact that it's not organic shows me that it either hasn't been certified or that the tomatoes and the ingredients in here are not actually organic, which means they've potentially been sprayed with pesticides, which could potentially be a bad thing. But if we go to the ingredients and we get to that first step, we've got tomatoes, jalapeno peppers, tomato paste, salt, dehydrated garlic. That's it. Very, very minimal list of ingredients. For salsas, you're usually having sugars, you're usually having some preservatives in there, some citric acid in there, but this is clearly broken down in a way where it's a very, very healthy version of salsa. Now again, tomatoes and pesticides, they usually are a little more heavy on the pesticides because they don't have a skin. So this is something where I'm probably not consuming it on an empty stomach, and I'm probably not consuming it every day, but it is something that is a little bit less heavy on the ingredients in terms of overall additives. And so once we get that, we go into the actual label. So we've got 2 tablespoons per serving. So again, if I'm having some chips and salsa, I'm probably having a lot more than 2 tablespoons. I'm probably having more like 7 to 10 tablespoons, honestly. But if we get here, we've got 10 calories per serving, including 0 grams of fat. We've got 2 grams of carbs and less than 1 gram of protein. So it's a very minimal nutritional content. So it's a very minimal macro focus. There's not many macros in here, not many calories. So this could be a pretty good substitute if you're looking to lose weight. And then the third example we got here are some Power Up Mega Omega Trail Mix. Now this is something that first look, it looks amazing, right? Mega Omega, you got walnuts, dried mango, almonds, cranberries, pumpkin seeds, gluten-free, vegan, cholesterol-free, must be good, right? Let's take a look at the ingredients. So first ingredient, dried cranberries, which includes cranberries and sugar and sunflower oil. Sunflower oil is pretty inflammatory. It's not the worst of the worst, but we do have the sugar in there. Then we've got dried mango, which is mango, sugar, and citric acid. Now, again, more sugar, and then citric acid is a little more acidic. So if we're looking at the alkaline acidic balance, which probably not something we're focusing on in this video. We've got roasted almonds, which has almonds, sunflower, and or canola oil. So a little bit more inflammatory oil there. Walnuts, and then pumpkin seeds. So first look here, it doesn't look terrible, right? A lot of good ingredients. Yes, you got some sugar in there. Yes, you got some sunflower oil. But let's kind of look based off this, what is actually consumed? Like how much sugar is there in here? So if we break down the label, we've got calories is 200. So that's pretty heavy on the calories for a very small bag. And then you've got total fat is 11 grams. Now this is healthy and unhealthy fats because you're getting it from the almonds, but then you're also getting it from the sunflower and canola oil. Then you've got the 23 grams of carbs, which is a little higher here, but again, it's most likely coming from those fruits. And then the big thing here, we've got 17 grams of sugar. Now here's the cool part, is they don't just tell you the sugar because there's sugar in fruit. So there's probably sugar in the cranberries and in the mango, but there's also 8 grams of added sugar. Now, 8 grams is a lot for a small bag like this, right? Especially if you think that it's only on the cranberries and the mango. And so that's a red flag for me, is I'm probably not going to consume these. I mean, if I'm out hiking, I'm being super active, I'll have them, but I'm not going to be eating these as a snack every day. And then we got protein is only 4 grams. So again, like makes it look super healthy, makes it look super nutritious, but if we break it down, it's a little high in calories, which is, yeah, but you've also got a lot of sugars, a lot of inflammatory oils, which in the long game, which is what every single one of you should be playing, this is not the best choice to stay on track and to stay focused. So I hope that makes things a little bit easier. I know this stuff can get very, very confusing. If this is something where you're a little overwhelmed, go in the description of this video and check out our free course. We break down this stuff a lot more in that course. If you do decide to join the EMS Body Mastery Program, then you're actually going to get access to a lot more in depth of this information and that checklist of 13 ingredients that you're going to want to avoid. So I'm curious, how often do you look at the ingredients of the food that you eat? Let me know in the comments, but besides that, keep up the amazing work, stay committed to your goals, and of course, as always, eat smart, move more, sleep deep, and be grateful for this moment. I'll see you in the next video.